Hi team, just a quick walkthrough of using Visual Studio Code to connect to our repository. In other words, clone our repository, downloading it to our machine, installing the Python virtual environment, and then making the relevant updates to the .gitignore and .slugignore files. I'll explain what they do in a moment. And that will kind of be the first stage to make sure that we're connected and everything is working. And we will also create our own development branches. The reason is that we want to make sure that our master branch is clean. In other words, has code that we know works and that we can work off of, while our development branches is where we do all our development. So let's kick this off. In Visual Studio Code, we have the sidebar here, the navigation. So Explorer is where we have all the files when we've cloned them. We can search, source control, which we're going to look at, run and debug, and then I've added a few additional things. But one of the things that is also very important is extensions. This is where you can install additional extensions that you need or want. Now I've obviously gone a bit over the top. We can ignore that for the moment. And there are a few other things that we can add that may make our lives a little easier. However, let's start off with the Explorer. And basically, we can either open an existing folder locally, or we can clone a repository. And this is what we want to do. So we click on Clone Repository. Ideally, then, what we can do is we can paste the URL to the repository, which is what I suspect you guys will need to do. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see my repository by clicking on Clone from GitHub, because it logs in and says, hey, safe havens are here. And click on that. And then I want to place this in a special folder, and I have a special folder that I use. So in this repository directory or folder, it will create the safe havens folder with the relevant files. So I click on select repository location. And then would you like to open? Yes, I would. And what we see is this. Now, there are a couple of things. Somebody within Code Institute likes the dark background. I'm more for the white one. What we can see though is it's downloaded .gitignore and the readme.md. Now, that's fine. We'll look at it a little later. What it also has is, at the moment, though, we don't have a proper configured environment. Even though it says we've got the master branch, and we can click on that, and we'll be able to create other branches, development branches, that we want to work with. We have which version of Python. That's going to change because we're going to create our own local environment. And there's a few other bits and pieces. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go to Terminal, New Terminal, and then here. Now, we're in our local folder. That's where I want to be. So what I do is I want to create a local Python 3 environment. Why? Because when we start adding Flask extensions to it or install various packages, we have to make sure that those are the only packages that are relevant that we then push to GitHub and then to Heroku. If we use a global, that means all packages that I've ever installed in the global environment will be used, and that I don't want that because that will ruin the repository. So what we do is we do Python 3 minus m venv dot venv. So what does this mean? Now I have to type Python 3 because on the Mac, Python 2.7 is the default version and it is used by the operating system. So Python 3 minus m, so use the module venv, create a virtual environment and call it .venv. Now you can call it ham spam, pizza pasta, whatever you want. I like calling mine .venv. So press enter. And you can see here it's created the .venv environment. If we expand that, we can see that includes a bunch of binaries. It has, if you include, it's empty, a few libraries that are relevant to Python. So anything else we add then in terms of installing using pip will end up under lib. Now, one of the problems, though, as we can see, there are two problems here. So we'll move on to that in a little second. One of the problems now is I'm still not in my virtual environment. So I need to type source.venv bin activate. And there you see I'm now using my virtual environment. That's what I want. So we're not done yet. The other thing we'll see here is there's a Python 382. I have to click on that and I have to refresh here. And I want to use this Python 3.9.5 64-bit .venv. So my virtual environment. And you can see that changes down here. So now I know that in my terminal, I got my development environment, and in Visual Studio Code is using my virtual environment. So I'm okay. Now, still using the master branch, which I really don't want to do, but I'm going to make a few changes for us all before I create my own branch. Now, as you can see then, if we go to source control, that is basically our versioning system, which is how we decide to push, pull, commit, and add data to the GitHub repository. Now, we don't want all these files added. That's just not good. So we need to go here. We need to double click on .gitignore. So single click will open the file, but it will close it when you click on something else. Double click will open the file permanently until you decide to close it. I want to add .venv, and I will save it, Control S. And we can see then that we no longer have 576 files uploaded, we only have 2. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to right click here, new file, .slugignore, and here I'm going to add /documentation. Now what is this? I'll save it. The .gitignore tells Git, don't push these files or directories to the GitHub repository. Now, .slugignore tells GitHub not to push files from the GitHub repository to Heroku, such as documentation. And in fact, I'm also going to add the readme.md file, because we definitely don't need that on Heroku. Because what happens is, when we start adding images and stuff to our readme.md file and do a whole bunch of other things, that is loaded when we create our Heroku environment. We don't want that. And since I think we have 500 meg slug size on Heroku, which is fine, but it starts complaining around 300 mark, I think. So that's just kind of the start. Now, that's good. So what we have then is, if we click on source control, we have these 3 files. And what I'd like to do is just say initial git updated, and this is just the way I like to do things, .git ignore and .slug ignore to avoid pushing unnecessary files and folders. Now, under source control here, we have a couple of menu items. So we have one we're going to use later on, create a pull request. But at the moment, this is what I'm interested in, more actions, interested in, sorry. I click on that. Now we could do all this from the command line, but I prefer to do this here. So I go to changes, stage all changes. I then click on more actions again. I go to commit, and I want to commit all. So not commit all amend, commit all signed off. And then click again and do a push. So what we've done is we've staged the changes locally, we've added them to commit, and we've now pushed that to the repository. So here, more actions, changes, stage all changes, followed by commit, and commit all signed off. We could do commit stage, but just do commit all, and then push. So this is easy, and it's extremely useful. Now, we're now using the master branch. I don't want to do that. I want to avoid potentially ruining the master branch. I want to keep it nice and clean. So I will go to down here, master, and I will say I want to create a new branch from. So I'll give it a branch name. I want to call my dev underscore dev. Select the branch I want origin master, and we can now see down here, I have now my own dev environment, gaff_dev. That's the environment that I want to work in and do all, do fail fast, in other words. Now, if we were to look on GitHub, we will see that it should create, oh, I haven't pushed it yet. Okay. So if I then just close those and go to files, we can see that here we have the relevant files. So I could make a change. I'm going to get a new folder, call it documentation, turn, and it should pop up, but I have nothing in it. So let's create something in it then, new file. Let's call it this test file text. Turn. This is just a test file for Git. And then we save that. And we now go to source control. We can see we have this here. You can see there are a few other icons there. We can open file. We can discard changes. Let's say we realize, oh, this is not good. We can stage changes, and that's just made us know that it's unchanged. So again, I will stage all changes, and then I will commit and commit all signed off. Oh yeah, adding the documentation folder and a test file. There we go. And then finally, push. Would you like to publish this branch? Yes. So it's now going up to GitHub Repository and saying, would you like to create a pull request for branch? No, not yet. But looking at my GitHub repository on my other screen, I can see that gaff_dev had recent pushes less than a minute ago, compare and pull requests. So what it's saying is, I've noticed changes between that are newer in the development branch compared to the master branch. Do you want to push them? So I could actually, well, let's do this. Well, I won't be able to prove that change. I'll create the pull request anyway, just to show you what it looks like. So the pull request then has the merge changes of havens, gaff_dev into safe havens master. So from to, I'm okay with all that, I think. And that should be okay. And then create. So we create a pull request, and we get this. Now, what we can do here is I can say, so this is just a pull request test. Now I can, that's just my comment, I like that, and then I do merge pull request, and then create merge commit, and then it says, do I want to delete my branch? So what I could do here is delete my branch and start a new development branch. Now, why would I want to do that? Well, because let's say 3 of us are working on 3 different areas, 3 different development branches. We push our changes to the master branch. If I continue working on my local development branch, I will not get your changes. So by deleting this branch, I can actually create a new one from the master branch, making sure I have a clean, fresh one. So I'm going to do delete and to select delete remote branch. Yeah, so I can do that. And then I can close this pull request. So we can actually then see on GitHub exactly what it looks like. That is, has like a change. So I no longer have my, okay, that's cool. So I'm just going to do this. I am going to go to master, create new branch from. I'm going to call this gaf_dev based on the origin master. And we are now back again in play. So that's it in a nutshell. Thank you.